I have sat across from countless clients, brilliant, loving, capable women, who share one heartbreaking pattern. They kept the truth locked away until the relationship crumbled, seemingly overnight. You thought everything was fine, but inside, a quiet emotional withdrawal was happening, and the silence was deafening. Let's talk about why the curtain falls so suddenly, and how we can stop this tragic script before it reaches its final painful act. In the world of psychology, we often talk about the invisible forces that shape our relationships. We crave connection, yet we build fortresses around our hearts. When we look at why women, specifically, tend to hide their authentic thoughts and feelings, often until a problem becomes an irreversible crisis, culminating in a sudden breakup or the filing of divorce papers, we find ourselves navigating a labyrinth of societal conditioning, deep-seated fear and survival instincts. The irony, as I often explain to couples who come to me, is that open communication is the cornerstone of a thriving relationship. Without it, the connection dies, much like life without oxygen. But maintaining honest and open dialogue isn't always easy. For many women, the journey toward deep intimacy is paved with profound psychological risks that make silence feel like the safest, most logical choice. The double bind. When silence is socially expected, the first barrier to open communication is often external, woven into the very fabric of how society expects women to behave. We call this the heterosexual relationship imperative. Imagine a young woman stepping into a new relationship. She quickly learns the rules of engagement. Society dictates that she must embody certain ideals: niceness, goodness, and, crucially, silence. These traditional concepts demand selflessly prioritizing others' needs, often at the expense of her own. In fact, young women often talk about the need for self-sacrifice as an unavoidable element of dating men. If you deviate, if you speak up too loudly, you risk the ultimate social punishment, losing the relationship or, worse, being labeled. In my clinical work, I hear clients constantly grappling with this no-win situation, or what some scholars term the double bind. They know that open communication is necessary, yet they share a collective understanding of the necessity of silence, especially early on, to maintain what is perceived as a healthy, cool relationship. One client, let's call her Maya, told me, "I felt like I had to be the cool girl, the one who eats wings, hangs out with his friends, and never complains about his boys' nights out. I was afraid if I showed any vulnerability, he'd think I was too much." This feeling, the pressure to embody the cool girl persona, is a modern way of enforcing traditional silencing behaviors. But here's where the trap springs. While they know they must be quiet, modern relationship narratives demand they be the communicative woman. They are told a healthy relationship is based on communication and checking in. However, the overwhelming burden of communicating correctly falls squarely on the woman's shoulders, ensuring she doesn't sound crazy or a bitch. She is expected to initiate difficult conversations, but only in the perfect, non-accusatory manner, prioritizing her partner's feelings over her own frustration. If she fails to manage her emotions appropriately, she risks becoming the very thing she fears: dramatic, psycho, or a bad woman. This external pressure, coupled with the internalized belief that her value rests on her ability to be nice and quiet, leads directly to suppression and withdrawal. The fortress within, the psychology of fear and rejection. Beyond external pressures, the deepest reasons women hide their feelings stem from internal protective mechanisms rooted in fear, the shadow of rejection sensitivity. For many women, particularly those who have experienced relational instability in childhood, such as parental rejection, they develop a cognitive affective processing disposition we call rejection sensitivity, RS. Think of RS as an alarm system set on hyper alert. A rejection-sensitive person anxiously expects rejection, readily perceives it even in ambiguous situations, and overreacts when they encounter rejection cues. They interpret small, insensitive behaviors, like a partner being distant or inattentive, as intentional acts of rejection and hurtful intent. Why does this lead to silence? Because the anticipatory anxiety of expressing needs or vulnerabilities to a significant other is too great. They fear that if they open up, they will be met with anger, hostility, or, most terrifyingly, their partner withdrawing support or leaving altogether. If the alarm system goes off, the typical response is defensive, hostile, jealous, and controlling behavior for men, or hostility and diminished support for women. But often the first defense is preemptive silence. If she doesn't ask for help, she can't be rejected. If she doesn't express a need, it can't be dismissed. This is the ultimate self-protective act, but it ultimately undermines the relationship and causes the partner's dissatisfaction. The role of attachment styles. The tendency to hide feelings is also heavily influenced by our adult attachment style, which is rooted in our earliest connections with caregivers. While roughly 50% of the population experiences secure attachment, comfortably balancing intimacy and independence, many women who struggle with emotional hiding fall into the insecure categories. Anxious, preoccupied, or avoidant. Anxious, preoccupied attachment. These women constantly feel insecure and pressured in relationships, perpetually needing emotional reassurance from their partner. They are terrified of being alone and may accept or endure negative behavior just to maintain the connection. When they feel threatened or anxious about being abandoned, they often become angry, accusatory, and critical of their partner, e.g., "You're too boring, you're lazy," instead of admitting their true fear, "I love you, and I'm scared you don't love me back." This anger, a disguised form of their true sorrow and fear, pushes the partner away, reinforcing the original fear of rejection. Dismissive avoidant attachment. These women prioritize independence and emotional distance. They see the risks of intimacy and closeness as too high, often due to unstable or rejecting early experiences. When they feel threatened or uncertain, they quickly pull up the emotional drawbridge, declaring they are too busy or need space. They won't admit they are feeling abandoned. Instead, they retreat into themselves, valuing personal goals over emotional intimacy. When an anxiously attached person, who constantly needs to be affirmed, pairs with an avoidantly attached person, who constantly needs space, the result is a toxic loop. The anxious partner seeks closeness. The avoidant partner retreats, and feelings remain hidden, misinterpreted, and eventually, the relationship implodes. The destructive act of suppression hiding feelings isn't just a passive avoidance. It's an active psychological process called expressive suppression. In psychological terms, we contrast two main strategies for regulating emotions. Cognitive reappraisal, changing how you think about a situation before the emotion hits, and expressive suppression, hiding or controlling the emotional expression after the feeling has started. Reappraisal is generally beneficial, leading to positive outcomes for both the person and their partner's relationship satisfaction. It reduces subjective negative feelings and associated physical responses. Suppression, however, is a different story. When a woman suppresses her anger, frustration, or sadness, she is making an effort to reduce the outward, expressive behavior. But this has little to no effect on the immediate, internal, subjective experience. The emotional process is still activated, leading to increased internal distress, autonomic responses, and emotional exhaustion. In my office, I see the visible strain this causes. Suppression is strongly linked to chronic negative outcomes, including chronic anxiety, depression, and physical health problems like headaches and insomnia. The research confirms this. A woman's suppression of emotions exerts significant negative effects on her own relationship satisfaction. More importantly, suppression has devastating interpersonal consequences. Although suppression is difficult for a partner to recognize directly, it's a hidden process. It creates an atmosphere of emotional disengagement and lower relationship quality. When one partner suppresses, the other experiences a decrease in friendly communication and overall less intimacy. The suppressing individual often feels a profound sense of inauthenticity, which inevitably contaminates the connection, leading to mistrust, misunderstandings, and distance. This destructive cycle is further amplified by life stress, juggling work, family, and gendered expectations, like the unspoken rule that women must handle emotional labor. The invisible work of managing everyone's feelings leads to persistent stress and burnout. Hiding emotions becomes a defense mechanism against feeling overwhelmed. The ticking clock, the spiral to too late. So why do women maintain the facade until it's too late? Because for a long time, the desire to maintain peace, prevent conflict, and protect their partner's fragile ego outweighs their own emotional needs. We see this tragically illustrated in one specific arena: sexual intimacy. It's well documented that women often fake sexual satisfaction, or Thung Hoa. Why? 1. To please the partner. She wants to satisfy her man and doesn't want to hurt his feelings if the experience is incomplete. To protect the male ego. Men are often socialized to believe that successfully satisfying their partner reflects their competence. If she doesn't achieve satisfaction, he might feel his pride is damaged. To avoid being blamed. She might fear that admitting dissatisfaction will lead him to accuse her of being frigid or unenthusiastic. To keep him. She fears that if she doesn't feign excitement, he might feel discouraged and pull away. This pervasive need to fudge the truth to keep the peace. Oh no, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. Or, no, I am not angry. It's okay, really, is a slow poison. By continually denying their reality, women lose both the peace and the true intimacy they were trying to preserve. The inevitable culmination of prolonged suppression and avoidance behavior is what many partners experience as a blindsided breakup. The partner who felt the relationship was fine is shocked to learn that the other person has felt disconnected for months. The woman, exhausted by carrying the emotional burden alone, simply loses interest or reaches a point of no return. She may have carried on the facade, hoping the negative feelings would pass or simply wanting to avoid the difficult, messy conversation. When communication issues persist, studies show a distinct difference between couples who stay together and those who seek divorce. Happily married couples exhibit higher scores in constructive communication, e.g., discussing issues calmly, solving problems together, and lower scores in avoidant tactics. Conversely, couples seeking divorce show significant variance in harmful patterns like mutual avoidance communication and male expectation, female withdrawal. When problems are left dwelling in silence, resentment takes hold, leading to irreparable damage. In short, too late is when the emotional withdrawal, characterized by reduced communication, emotional distance, avoidance of conflict, and indifference, becomes total. When she no longer feels safe, heard, or valued, she shuts down. The light turns off and the vibrant, communicative partner becomes a barricade of feelings, rebuilding the connection. The prescription for authenticity. The good news is that this trajectory is not inevitable. You can turn the tide and reestablish connection, but it requires courage, effort, and a willingness to dismantle the structures of fear and silence. The core solution lies in promoting open, safe, and honest dialogue. Both partners must feel secure expressing themselves without fear of criticism or anger. Create safety. Through validation, safety is paramount. If a woman has hidden her feelings out of fear, she needs validation to open up. Validation is a game changer. It means acknowledging her emotions first, making her feel heard and supported, rather than immediately jumping into problem-solving mode. Say, I can see that this situation really hurt you, and I'm here for you, instead of trying to fix it right away. For the partner who feels blindsided, you must set the stage for vulnerability. Say, whatever's bothering you, you can tell me. I promise to hear you out without interrupting. This reassurance helps her express herself without the fear of criticism or negativity. Speak the language of I. When finally sharing feelings, it's vital to adopt clear, direct communication. This means focusing on your emotional experience rather than accusing the other person, a concept known as the I position, instead of saying, "You never listened to me," which escalates tension. Try an I statement. I feel unheard when we don't talk about my concerns. This shifts the focus from blame to genuine emotion, making the conversation more productive. Similarly, women who hide their needs must learn to articulate them clearly. Don't hint or assume your partner knows what you want. Say it out loud. I feel like we haven't been spending much time together lately, and it's making me feel distant. Or, I need some space right now to unwind. Clarity removes guesswork and strengthens the relationship. Stop fudging and accept their reaction. To reestablish intimacy, you must stop lying and stop fudging the truth. Don't minimize your dissatisfaction for the sake of temporary peace. Authenticity requires taking the risk of telling the truth and allowing your partner to have their own reaction. You are not responsible for your partner's reaction. You are responsible for your truth. If she expresses sadness or frustration, simply share the raw, direct emotion without demanding that he fix it or take responsibility for it. For example, "I'm feeling really sad right now" is far more connecting than, "I think you spend too much time at work." This is how a woman connects with a man's heart. not just his mind. Practice empathy and differentiation. For both partners, the journey involves developing empathy, the bridge to open communication. Try to understand your partner's perspective, even if you disagree. A highly differentiated individual, having a clear sense of self and their own values, can make rational decisions even when emotional turmoil arises, which helps maintain stable relationships. You must honor your partner's opinion, even if it differs from yours, by saying, "I understand your opinion, but I feel differently. Can we agree to disagree?" This respectful approach de-escalates conflict and validates both viewpoints. The final word. The act of hiding true feelings is a desperate mechanism of self-preservation, born out of deep-seated fears of rejection and a lifetime of conforming to impossible social expectations. This quiet suppression, though meant to protect the relationship, becomes the very force that undermines and ultimately destroys it. The cost of silence is chronic anxiety, unresolved resentment, and the shocking realization that you have drifted apart until it's too late. The healing begins the moment one person finds the courage to drop the mask of fine and speak her truth clearly, respectfully, and without attachment to the outcome. If arguments are stuck in a relentless, unresolved cycle, or if long-term resentment has settled in, seeking professional guidance from a therapist is crucial. A commitment to honest, vulnerable dialogue, supported by mutual respect and safety, is the only way to transform a fragile connection into a resilient, fulfilling partnership. Don't wait until the silence becomes the epitaph of your relationship. Start talking today.